Whether you're currently renting and looking to buy, or relocating to a new city and wondering if renting is the right initial first step, here's a couple things to consider before even making this very important life decision. Hey, I'm Ashley Hart. I'm a real estate expert in DFW, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons for buying versus renting. And to be honest, there's valid arguments for both. So let's start at the place that most of us start, and that's renting. Now there's a lot of pros to renting. There's lower upfront costs, there's flexibility, you can leave if you don't like the location as soon as your lease expires, you've got access to amenities, the landlord takes care of all the repairs. There is so much good to be said about renting. And sometimes you just choose to rent because maybe you're not ready. Maybe you don't have the down payment saved up. Maybe your credit score isn't exactly where you need it to be. Maybe you don't have a rainy day fund for if something was to break. Regardless of the reasons, there is a lot to love about renting. Now, one of the biggest luxuries of renting is actually the reason that I rented for so many years. You see, I was living and working in downtown Dallas, which meant that everything I wanted to do, work, friends, activities, it was all hyper-local. I could walk out the back gate of the property and I could go for a jog on the Katy Trail, or I could, waste 5 minutes in my apartment getting ready and then head out for dinner with friends. It was right there. It was walkable, it was drivable, there was public transportation. Everything that I could possibly imagine was right at my fingertips. The only downside to that living environment was that I wasn't building equity. I was spending all this money to be hyper-local and have the convenience, but I wasn't building a nest egg, to use my dad's analogy, to use towards further equity in purchasing a home. And so as I look back on that time in my life, it was the perfect solution for me right then because it checked all the boxes that were important to me at the time. But as I began to grow and my family began to grow, I realized that what was more important to me as time passed was different than what was important to me early in my career. Now, if you ask me, the most amazing benefit of renting is that you don't have to deal with the things when they break. It's the middle of the summer and your AC goes out. You call your landlord or you call the maintenance company. You don't have to worry about staying home and meeting the repair technician who inevitably schedules you from 8 to 12 and then shows up at 2:30, right? You can't build your career and your business and also be waiting at home for these repair people. And so as a young working professional, renting was 1,000% the right answer for me because it gave me the space to grow professionally while at the same time knowing that my home was ready for me when I walked in the door exhausted. Now, a great example of this luxury that I honestly didn't appreciate in the moment is when it came time for me to buy my first house, because I did, and I found it, and it was perfect, and it was cute, and I loved everything about it. Actually bought it before it even went on the market because I was driving through the neighborhood, saw a sign in the yard, went and knocked on the door, and yes, I was that person. And then a week later, after the inspections, after the home warranty was purchased, after the closing, and the keys were mine, a week later, a toilet broke. Surprise, yay. So I fixed it. And then the garage door motor went out. Okay, we're doing this. And I had a home warranty, but of course it didn't cover either of those items. And we chugged along through a couple more months, couple years went by, and then the HVAC went out. And let me tell you, in that moment, I had wished I was still renting because I had extended the home warranty for a couple years. I knew that it was on its last leg. That home warranty, those stinkers, they gave me $400 towards what ended up being a $10,000 replacement of ductwork, interior, exterior units, everything. And that is the perfect example of why I was not ready to own when I first came out of school. I was not ready to be home dealing with that. I didn't have the resources, I didn't have the time, I didn't have any of those things lined up when I was early in my career. And I'm so, so glad that I made the decision to rent for the period of time that I did, so that I was prepared when this came. Now, as convenient as renting can be, there are some downsides. And the biggest downside is rent. You never know in Texas what you're gonna get. We are not an area that has rent control, and so our landlords are free to change that rent year over year, and you never know until the time that your lease renews what to expect. The next big con is you can't modify or adapt the space to your personal preferences. You can't really knock down walls. You can't expand if your family grows. You can't change the paint without landlord approval. It's very, very, very restrictive. And lastly, and most importantly, is you're not building equity. You see, every month that you pay that rent, you're paying the landlord's mortgage. It's still going to a mortgage, it's just not yours. Instead, with buying, you take that same amount of money and you start to build equity in a home that you will have. So when is the right time to buy? Well, there's a couple reasons. When you're financially ready, when you're locationally sure or planted where you think you'll be for a couple of years, or frankly, if you're fed up with the downsides of renting. Those are usually the top 3 reasons that people will reach out to an agent. Now let's go into those a little bit. Financially secure. Is that money set aside, ready, and waiting to be deployed? Or are you counting on that money to come in with a year-end bonus or a tax refund or something like that? That's not really what we're talking about. In order for you to be financially secure and ready, you have the down payment and also the money set aside should something go wrong that first couple years of ownership. Now, locationally secure. Are you expecting your job to relocate you? Are you expecting your family to move across the country? Moving into a home for a short-term basis is not necessarily the right time to buy because it takes 5 to 7 years for your equity to appreciate enough in most markets for you to be able to sell the home without taking a loss. Buying or selling a home is expensive, and you need those period of several years in order for your home to appreciate enough to where you can sell it and offset some of those costs. Now, some of you guys bought during COVID and your home rapidly increased in value. And that's great, and I'm so excited for you because it happened in a very short period of time. But that's not normal, and I don't want you to expect that year over year over year because it's not gonna happen. Now, with all of that being said, here's my soapbox. Do not try to time the market. People call me all the time and they say, hey, Ashley, when is the best time to buy? And I always say the same thing. The best time to buy is when it makes sense for you. When you can check those boxes that we just talked about, financial security and locational stability, that is when it makes sense for you to buy. If you try to time the market, you're either gonna have one of 2 things. You're gonna have a lower price or a higher interest rate. They do not coexist at the same time. Now let's come full circle. Let's assume that you've bought your first home, you've lived in it for several years, the equity is appreciated, and you're ready to move on, whether it's something that you've outgrown or you're just ready for an upgrade. You have 2 choices. The first is you can sell this first home and you can use the equity towards the down payment of your new home. Or you can keep this home, you can become a landlord, and you can invite a renter to continue to pay your mortgage. Both of these are good options. A great agent can help guide you through which one is right for you. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. My whole goal here is just to make real estate a little less scary and a little more fun. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.